to another topic specific episode over here on the Work Knits YouTube channel. It's so nice to be with you here again today. The sun is shining, it's feeling like spring. I've got a different backdrop today, very little makeup as always, and filming this on a rare day off, so you're catching me in a very happy mood. I hope that all of you are well. And yeah, let's dive straight in. Today I'm going to be talking about some books and resources that have really helped me on my knitting journey. I had this requested in the comments on one of my previous videos and thought, what a great idea. I already have a blog post about this up on my website, but I thought a kind of video version might be really nice to share with you all. And I've got a couple of extra books that I've had since I wrote that initial blog post. Before I get stuck in, really briefly, I just thought I'd mention what I'm wearing today. I'm wearing my contrast sweater by Petite Knit. This is knit up in Isaiah Highland wool and Isaiah mohair with a couple of other yarns as the contrast, which you can't see on screen. And then my market day shawl. This is one of my patterns up on Ravelry, and this is knit up in Durera Natura Gilead in the colourway Foray. So, knitting books. Actually, before I even dive into that, again, super briefly, public service announcement. Thank you all so much for your feedback on previous episodes. There's been some really helpful feedback recently regarding audio ratios and the volumes of different parts of my episodes. There's also been some feedback regarding some white noise in the background, which I have figured out is my LED light that is making that noise. So for those of you that kind of bared with and stuck with me despite the audio problems, thank you so much. This will be something I am trying to tackle in episodes going forwards, so do keep feeding back whether those bits are improving. I'm not using my LED light today, which is probably doing no benefit or no good for my complexion here on camera. And audio wise, I am looking into investing in a microphone and kind of investing in some different recording kit, so we will see how that goes. Back into the episode proper. So I'm actually going to remove my scarf because I'm stood here in a little patch of sunlight, which is really lovely, but I'm getting a little bit warm. That's better. Right, so book number one to share with you all is Knitting Stitches. This is a Women's Institute book published back in the 1980s. You can get loads of modern Stitch dictionaries. When I first started knitting, I basically went through this Stitch dictionary trying to teach myself all the different stitches. I didn't manage to do all of them, but I did do quite a selection, and it really improved my knitting. I now use this on a kind of, I'd say pretty much every project. I refer to this and just check that I'm using the stitch that kind of conveys the right vibe and feel for what I'm wanting. In terms of why I like this particular version, well, I mean, I came across this one in a charity shop and picked it up when I was probably about 10 years old. So it wasn't like I had loads to choose from, but something I would say, having now looked at other Stitch dictionaries, that I really love about this one is that it covers knit and purl textures, rib patterns, all over lace panels, patterns for texture and colour, where you kind of combine the two, cables, cable patterns more generally, and then also edging. The only thing this guide doesn't really do is ferrule knitting, kind of colourwork motifs. But yes, would highly recommend getting a Stitch dictionary. I think they really begin to challenge you to think about your selection of stitches, your selection of texture, and if there are patterns that you've already knitted a version of already and you want to knit another version but with maybe a slight point of difference, then the Stitch guide can be great for finding maybe something, a little element that you can add to those. And that is kind of the beginning of designing your own things, is modifying existing patterns. So first book is Stitch Guide. I haven't got masses of space to put all of these as I go through them, but let's try and find some space. Okay, on the topic of, she disappears below screen. On the topic of Stitch dictionaries and Stitch guides, but picking up on that ferrule point, another book that I love is the Alternate Stitch Dictionary. I think there is another one coming out soon. I think it's available on pre-order at the moment. So this is written by Andrea Rangel. Beautiful dictionary, 200 colourwork motifs. with all the charts. It does include some patterns to show you how you can apply these, but essentially again it's this reference guide letting you apply stitch patterns to whatever feels right for you. They also talk about things like colour dominance and kind of how to hold your yarns. They really do guide you through step by step. I believe, and I will stand corrected if needs to, I believe they also tackle steeking. I think they tackle catching floats, swatching, how to read the charts. They do indeed cover steeking, I was correct. And they give you loads of tips on better colour work. So another really, really good stitch guide there. Just thinking about what to take you to next. Should we stick on the topic of colour work? Let's do that. I'm going to dip back below the camera again, apologies. And we're back. I talk about this book all the time. This is the Strange Brew Sweater Recipe Book by Tin Can Knits. This was published a few years ago now, and essentially the book gives you a recipe, regardless of whether you want to knit your sweater top down or bottom up, for how to knit colourwork sweaters in the round and steek them into cardigans if you wish. There is a number of pre-planned yoke designs for you that you can use, or it gives you the charts, motifs with the various stitch counts to design your own. And the amazing thing about this is it not only does it gives you a recipe for different options and different kind of ways of knitting top down, bottom up, but it also does it across sock weight, DK weight and Aran weight sweaters, with the most enormous size range going from kind of baby infant sizes all the way through to a very diverse range of adult sizes. So really, really size inclusive. And I think also kind of gives you the skills and techniques that if you needed to go in between any of those sizes or needed to go at the at either extreme end, you probably could modify it using the knowledge that they give you. I have knit so many items using this recipe. I absolutely love it, and I could not recommend it more highly. In fact, if there was someone that was wanting to go into colourwork for the first time, or knitting a colourwork sweater for the first time, if they already had some knitting knowledge and had done a couple of sweaters already, highly recommend this. I think I got this before I'd ever even really knit a sweater before, and I'd say the amount of choice is quite overwhelming. But if you're used to following patterns, if you're used to figuring out your size, if you're used to increased techniques, then I think this is fantastic. Ducking down again. Next on my list of books that have really influenced my knitting progression would actually be two books from Rowan. So one is their Valley Tweed book that accompanies that yarn base, and the other is the New Nordic book that was produced with Arnie and Carlos. Now, I think for both these, so the Rowan Valley Tweed book comes with 6 designs designed in their Rowan Valley Tweed base. And I think what's really interesting about this is it kind of introduced me to this idea of tailored knitwear. They're very, very tailored designs, knit flat, in pieces and then seamed together. And yes, I think this was the first time I kind of started to think about how knitwear would really fit into my wardrobe. I actually never completed the jumper that I was knitting from here. I was knitting, let me find the picture for you. I was knitting this jumper, which is a lovely seamed, tailored, set-in sleeve design, fingering weight yarn. And yeah, I never finished it because I was learning so much. I was learning about picking up neckbands, I was learning about all sorts that I just maybe didn't do perfectly when I first started knitting it. But I think definitely one I could come back to. And I think just understanding the techniques from a knitting flat point of view was really, really helpful. I think the other Rowan book, the reason why this one from Arnie and Carlos was helpful was more of a point of inspiration around what can be achieved. So for those, I would imagine that most people know Arnie and Carlos. Here's a lovely picture of the two of them. So Arnie and Carlos are a pair of Norwegian knitwear designers. They have got a absolutely formidable heritage in knitting design and in the knitting world, and they've produced this series of patterns, as I say, in kind of collaboration with Rowan. And I think what they've done in this book is or these set of patterns, is to combine two different yarn bases where a lot of the colour work is in mohair. So this just acted as a real point of inspiration for me. Got an intarsia design there. It just inspired me to think differently about colour work, to think differently about bringing maybe more traditional colourwork motifs into kind of a newer setting. Isn't that sweater beautiful? I'd love to knit that. And again, whilst I think quite a few of these have components that are knit in the round, I'm just double checking myself whether that actually is knit in the round. Yes, they definitely are knitted in the round. Yes, so I think that, you know, this for me was combining Rowan's kind of tailored look with knitting in the round and what can be produced with those two. They've also got some really helpful schematics explaining kind of how everything's going to work together, and they've got really clear charts. So all in all, yeah, a real point of inspiration and just new techniques, new ways of looking at colour work. So I actually haven't knit anything from this yet. I'd love to. This is another book that I think maybe I got it before I was kind of technically at a point where I could knit anything from it. But now my skill set is, as I say, in the meantime, it's acted as a huge inspiration point. I have read through this book multiple times. And now I absolutely love to knit something from here. So books can kind of serve different purposes at different points in your knitting journey. And I think that's really important to be aware of. Okay, we're going to stick on the kind of colour work trend. Please do forgive me for keep dropping down. So this is one I've mentioned recently. This is knitting from Fair Isle. Fair Isle is the place that Fair Isle knitting comes from. When you mention it in the knitting context, obviously the two words are smashed together. And this is 15 contemporary designs using traditional motifs but kind of applied in different ways across the different items. So it's kind of, I'd almost go as far as saying it's a singular chart that they have just reworked for different designs. They do a lot playing with colour within the charts to give you inspiration. Again, there's some really interesting tailoring techniques in here, beautiful photography, so it's very inspirational from that point of view. And lots of, what's the word I'm looking for? Lots of consideration for how you place pattern onto a garment. I think there's a lot I've learned in here from that perspective. Where do you put more detailed designs? What happens if you put a big, in kind of fabric or textile words, like a big print? What happens if you put that all over? What happens if you place it in certain areas of the body? How does that accentuate and draw the eye? So yes, a really fascinating exploration of kind of traditional colour work in the modern age. And that is by Matti Ventrillon, if I did not already mention. Okay, coming away from colour work. This book, I knit my very first sweater out of this. This is the Very Easy Sweater book, 50 Simple Stylish Designs by Vogue Knitting. I bought this back in 2015. Some of the designs, I'm going to put this out there, I'm going to be very honest in my review of this. I cannot fault their instructions, I can't fault the way that they explain stuff to you. Some of the designs are very much of an era. I'm going to try and show you this without showing you all the instructions, but like, that might be totally up some people's street. And the object itself, the cardigan, is lovely. It's more how they've styled them for the photos. They are, as I say, very much of an era, which I think at first put me off a little bit because I didn't have the experience to kind of be able to visualise how I could adapt it for my own style. However, this book, all the sweaters are very achievable for beginners. it will upskill you as you go through. But the other thing is that there is so many different construction techniques. So if you're thinking that you might want to design your own sweater, or you're interested how different constructions come together, this is a fantastic book to really explore those, and also where they have styled stuff kind of to my liking, so to speak. Got some really quite incredible photos. The book is broken up into sections, so you've got a stockinette section, you've got a light and easy section, which is kind of more like summer knits. You have got, flicking through, you have got a dramatic shapes. So this is quite fashion. Having said that, some of it's quite dated, that some of the silhouettes are very fashion forward, and again it's that kind of exploration of how do you translate something you might see in a shop or on a runway into something that you can make in your own home. From dramatic shapes it progresses into cables and heavily cabled designs, and from cables it progresses into stripes and colour work. I will pull out a sweater that I would absolutely love to knit. Da, da, da. Really nice big open neckline. It's also the one on the cover, and I've now just removed the sleeve by accident. And this is the original version of my very first sweater that I knit, and I didn't knit it in two colours, I knit it in a single colour with kind of a contrast edging. But I'd love to go back and make that sweater again, but with the two colours now that I have that capability. I'm just double checking in case there's a final section. I don't think there is. It's got a massive glossary at the back to help you, and loads of kind of indications around needles, kit and gauge, all that kind of shenanigans. But yes, a very much loved book, and definitely held my hand in my very first sweater. Okay, for the sock lovers out there, I purchased this book 2013, 2012, unless of course the publishing date contradicts me, because it literally wasn't in existence back then, but I want to say it was pretty early. Let me have a look. It's Socks by Chrissy Day. Yeah, so it's published in 2008, and I think I probably didn't pick it up until another kind of 4 years later. It's essentially got 30 pairs of socks, and those range through from baby booties through to like adult rugby socks. It's got the full works. The one thing I would say is that the pattern assumes you're working on DPNs, double pointed needles, and I was trying to knit my first pair of socks using this, and DPNs I just couldn't get them to work for me, and so that completely put me off socks. Again, now having the knowledge that I do, I would definitely go back in and knit some of these socks, but at the time that definitely put me off, unfortunately. So yes, 30 sock designs. I think I'd definitely go in and make a pair of like the rugby style socks for my other half. There's this pair of quite thick cabled, there's a cable at the back of the heel on this pair. I think they're beautiful. Maybe you can see a little bit more of the cable there. Those I think are kind of DK weights. There is a pair of colourwork, well the baby booties are gorgeous by the way, but yeah, there's a pair of colourwork socks which I would love to make, and actually I find very inspirational. Okay. So yes, I think if you are already a sock knitter and you've already found your way of knitting socks, and you are able to translate DPN instructions to magic loop or 9-inch circulars, whatever your preferred method is, or indeed you might love DPNs, then I think this is great. I think though, if you have never knit a pair of socks before, and you are maybe not aware of the different ways you can knit socks, although hopefully I've given you some indications there, I think this could be quite overwhelming, as it was for me. But yes, I think a really lovely book, and just a demonstration of all the different things you can do with socks. Okay, I wouldn't say this, I'd say this transformed my knitting journey in the sense that I had never knit something so tight or so detailed, and I think it was a bit of fun. And that is these mini knitted toys by Sachio Ishii. I probably completely butchered that, apologies. There are some other books in the series. There's also the Mini Knitted Safari and the Mini Knitted Woodland. And I just think the variety of little knitted toys are gorgeous. I made us a little Triceratops, which we actually have here in the house, and we love him. There's like little like soldiers, pandas, there's all sorts, but I just think they're so fun. So yes, and I think also really nice to have a really small discreet project. Whilst they're quite fiddly, you know, you could definitely do one of these in an evening. So quite nice to have something that's, yeah, like really discreet. I'm going to try and show you this without showing you the instructions. How cute are they? Little squirrels. And then also some drawing together, I guess, of sewing techniques, pom-pom making and knitting. So really lovely book, but as I say, kind of just something different rather than fundamentally transforming my knitting. Okay, I have made a recent purchase that will not yet be on that list. All the others I've mentioned will all be on my blog post, all about my favourite books. I will add this book to that list. This was actually bought for me by a friend for Christmas, and they know I love collecting knitting books and learning more. So they found me Knitting, Colour, Structure and Design, and this is by Alison Ellen. And this book, it's just looking at how you generate structure in fabric using decreases, increases, purl, rows, all sorts, just absolutely all sorts. And it goes through charts, it goes through the historical of like how, like what's happened with knitting over time, what's happened with outwear, attitudes to knitting. And then it kind of really talks about the kind of, I'll just kind of flash this up briefly, but talks about the actual like anatomy of a knitting stitch and how those stitches are made and formed and come together, what those different structures do to the overall fabric. It's really fascinating. And then basically there's a number of designs and patterns in here all playing with structure, but there's also just like an explanation of some basic techniques which you could then use in your own designs, with very, very clear explanations of how you work those techniques. So yeah, I think this has really brought my knitting on quite a bit in just understanding how to create different, not just textured, but different structured fabrics. Love that one on the back, it's beautiful. So yes, a great purchase. You'll be seeing some projects where I discuss putting this into action a little bit more, so I won't go into any more detail at the moment, but yeah, keep your eyes peeled for more of my projects featuring some of the ideas from this book. Okay, I'm on to my final two, everybody. Keeping this short and sweet, a little bit pacey. So, I currently have a book on loan from a friend, or rather, family friend of my other half. So Kathy Fassett was quite a big name in the knitting design world, probably 2000s and pre-2000s. Still very much a well-known designer in their own right, but definitely someone that maybe I wasn't as familiar with. And I am borrowing this book from, as I said, a family friend, because there's so much from that era that is now coming back into fashion, and I'm just intrigued, and I'm intrigued how these patterns were written. So just to make sure I've got all my facts straight, and I do, 1980s was when this was published. So this book kind of goes through knitting with colour and then talks about stripes, mosaic, knitting in different directions, all of the above. Look at this, amazing. So why have I got this book at the moment? There was well, one, it was just a point of interest, but two, there are some colourwork sweaters, but the kind of mosaic knit colourwork sweaters that I was fascinated by. Let me flick to the right page. I could have had this like, you know, beautifully organised and had the correct page already flagged, but there we go. Such is. Almost there, I think. Oh, just some really, this is not the one, but I'd also love to knit this. There we go. Classic kind of peering around the edge of the book to make sure you can see what I want you to see. Almost there. Da, da, da. Sorry everybody, we are almost there. It's given me so much inspo though, just flicking through it. I'm like, haha. So they've taken loads of like quilting techniques and applied them to colourwork and how you then recreate that. And there's some just really inspirational pictures. Here is the one that I really want to do. Oops. But I don't want to do it for a bloke, I want to do it for me. I mean, anyone could wear that one, but that's sized, you know, ratios wise, probably for some men's proportions. But yeah, I wanted to do a female version, so I had started it, but hadn't kind of got to quite where I wanted to, so I need to kind of pick that back up again. This has been knit kind of in intarsia, and I haven't ever done anything in intarsia. I'd love to, but I haven't yet, so that's going to be another challenge I'd like to take on this year. So again, keep your eyes peeled for something from, showing you the back cover, this book. Okay, very final book everybody. This for me is a real symbol of the potential when it comes to what we are all enjoying and engaging with in the knitting world, and that is Fibre Shed by Rebecca Burgess with Courtney White. And this is really about the economy of knitted items, how we can improve the impact on the environment, what the kind of life cycle is from an environmental perspective of different fibres that we use, what is going on locally to us to kind of help the environment and allow us to keep expressing ourselves, but through a way that doesn't damage the environment and is good for the sheep, and you know, pushes the realm of what's possible without doing damage. So I think this is an amazing book. There are fibre sheds across the world. This is about an American fibre shed, is my understanding. So yes, I think nice to look into the websites of your local fibre sheds, but this book is really comprehensive and kind of goes from the nurturing of the flock, or the kind of growing of the originating material that goes into your fibre, all the way through processing it, the spinning of it, if it gets woven, what happens there, if you're knitting it, what the options are there. It's got loads of contacts for different parts of fibre sheds within, this one addresses within the States. It talks about ingredients for dyeing. Yes, it's about the entire economy of knitting and the fibre arts. And has really helped me make more informed decisions about the businesses in our knitting community that I want to support, of which there are a great many and very few that I don't. But yes, I think just makes you more conscious. So that is my very, very quick run through of books that have influenced me. I continue to collect knitting books all the time, and I will continue sharing them if they're of interest. I hope today was a nice run through. If you have any questions for me, then please do leave them down there in the comments. As I said, I will be trying to improve audio and recording quality of all these videos over the coming weeks and months. Do keep feeding back. Your feedback is very, very welcome, and has been very constructive, so I really, really appreciate it. For now, I will leave you to your knitting. Have a lovely rest of week, rest of day, and I will see you very soon.